is because we actually want to be able to learn out the obligation to offer up the diaphragm, the liver, and the kidneys of Har Halal Davar Misibor, and for the Siri Avodas Kochaben Bigufin Lokusu. And for now, we see Avodah where it's not explicitly said, when we part point Mashiach, who did Gomer, and we're going to learn everything out from part point Mashiach. So it's interestingly enough, we're going to learn out from part point Mashiach, from part point Mashiach, where it's said explicitly for up these sacrificial parts. Then I'm going to learn out ultimately again from there to Par Harlem Davan Natzibor, and from there to Sira Bonos Kohabim. You have to instigate Kasher Yuram. Therefore, I need the phrase Kasher Yuram. To me, Havik Kenan de Kasser Bigufay. So once I have that phrase, ultimately again, it's as if the obligation is written explicitly. The lower they have a Davar Halamed Behakish, Koser Umalame Behakish. And if I will say, because that phrase is there, it's not like I'm taking something that itself is learned from it by comparison and ultimately using it as the source of the comparison for something else. Okay? I'm going to wrap up a little bit. I'm going to think of the buffet, but I'm not expecting to just write it there. You know, you have to show it. You said the buffet, because if I written in the actual pasuk itself, below Akish, and I didn't need a Hakish, I would have said, God bless you, Davar Halami Hakish, Koser Umalami Hakish. That generally something that we have for a comparison can serve as the source for another comparison. If you came not to Shakush, right? And nothing now we go forward with that. Maybe exceedingly good thing. With the Akish Hakish, and the Akish Kasvei, ultimately, again, it says, since we're going to do the not she actually, literally because of the buffet, Tartar in the actual source itself. With the Akish, Raki Kasvei, since it's going to be used as the source of the Hakish, therefore the Torah writes in that context. That should remain right. Davar Halami the Hakish, ain't Chojim around that. Ultimately, something that is the source, ultimately, of the Hakish, cannot serve as the source for something else. So, let's zoom out a little just a moment. So, let's remember what we have, right? So, what have we accomplished? What we've accomplished is, number one, it's certified by Ola, right? Ola, Shtuka B'Tzafan, Kabbalah B'Tzafan, not just for mitzvah, but Ma'akev. Next, Asham, Shtuka B'Tzafan, Kabbalah B'Tzafan, Ma'akev. Right? So now we use not Ola and Asham. Both require Shtuka and Kabbalah in the north, and ultimately not just required it for mitzvah, but it's not. If you don't have it, the covenant is fundamentally invalid. We also dabbled a little bit in Hashem Mitzvah, right? Hashem Mitzvah is one of these unique cases where on one hand it was part of the Permit of Hashem, but then it was why was it removed? Why did it have this unique? What makes it unique? Makes it unique? What applications on people, or on non-people, on the Torah? Yeah, the Torah do. The Torah that puts it right down, ultimately again, in the context of Hashem, by comparing it to a Chatas and an Ola, right? Puts it back into the category of Hashem. To say that Arach as much as there are blood applications on a person, you also still require blood applications ultimately again on the Mizbeach as well. So it was taken out, then it was put back in. This then launched into a whole other discussion, because interestingly enough, the Torah placed the Hashem Yisrael both to the Chatas to Hashem. So we're trying to understand why. This then went ahead and opened the door to the following conversation. Davar Halamed Behakish, Chozer Umalame Behakish. If something itself is learned out from it, so I'll give you an example. If B, right, if B, item B, right, topic B, is learned that halachos are derived from a comparison to A. The B then serve as the source to allow C to learn out halachos from B. Right? So that's another way of saying, Davar Halamed Behakish, something we're not makish, Chozer not makish. So now we see that's enough focus. That's enough focus. And that kind of is just blown open in this last discussion over here. So let's go back to over here. For a few more minutes, let's just get it back there. You know what I said? Davar Halamed Behakish, in Chozer not Behakish. The Gemara now says, the truth is, in reality, Halacha is the definitive thing of those differences we see as well. Davar Halamed Behakish, something learned out by comparison to something else. So again, B is learned out by comparing it to A. So now then you can't learn out anything about C from B. But anyway, what's the logic in that? Because B itself is not a source item. B can't be a source item because whatever you know about B is derived from a different source item. So if B itself is not a source item, but C is going up to comparison with A, how could B be a source for C? So the man makes sense. Therefore, Torah line the Hakish, and no point on Hakish. Therefore, something going out to the comparison cannot be the source, but learn out something else. The man says, what do we know? This one, image the Rava, image the Ravina. Either we learn out from Rava, and I've also actually points out in the front of the year, as image the Rava, the Kashay Vila, before the Kashay Vila, image the Ravina, the Asher Mitzvah. Okay, so either from one of those two orders, which we learn, you know, right? Not along the Hakish, now to the Gzir Shava. Oh, interesting. Okay, so now let's take it for granted that we're going to Paskin, Dafa Halom the Hakish, Aino Choser Umalamid the Hakish. Something going out for the comparison cannot serve as the source of the comparison. But what about, let's say I get a side, I learned that B from A to a Hakish. Can B now could be engaged in Gzir Shava, which ultimately again C. Now let's remember again, how do you do Gzir Shava? Similar word or phrase in two contexts. So I understand that B can't serve as a Hakish for C. It kind of serves Gzir Shava C. So Kashma, that we want to read these very interesting Kashma, but we must learn Ben Abtu was on. This is very interesting. Now in the come of the garden, she Torah, Harabosai, that is that Saras, the wraps on an entire bench, which means you have an entire article of clothing that is covered by Saras. I don't know that ultimately, again, the article of clothing is tar. Tar, you know, how do I know this? So the Gemara says, Rashi points out there was something like that in Rashi the Kiva, and Parkat Salas Kefala Beggar. Literally, again, the Salas wrapped it on the entire beggar. How do I know that if you have complete Salas on a beggar, that the beggar is tar? Ne'emar Karakas V'Gabakas V'Begin. How he used Lashon Karakas and Gabakas, that Lashon by clothing. First white line, Ne'emar Karakas V'Gabakas V'Begin. Second white line, the first one is. And it says Karakas and Gabakas by a person. Malahalon Karak B'Kulotar. So let's say just by a person. What happens if a person is totally covered in saras? What happens? That's halakha. They're tar. One of these unique peculiar halachas by saras. Right? You have a star of saras, you can become covered. But you're covered head to toe by saras, ultimately again you get tar. So just like it says karakas and gakas by a person, right? And a person covered head to toe by saras, ultimately is tar. Afkan, so too by a beggar. We also have the same Lashon of Karakas and Gabakas. If the beggar is fully covered by Tzaras, is that about? And we must watch this about that. How do you know person if he's covered head to toe, ultimately again by Tzaras? And Allah for a nice again his car. If Sid Miro show the Ad Lavlov. As the Pasuk says ultimately from his head to his toe, right? The Pasuk is the Paruach Tifra Hazaras Bar the Kisata. Show the Advaglot. Torah says it is covered when his head is feet. Like his car, this general said, the Kiski, Rosh Nulega. And we compare ultimately again the head of the Mitzvah to the foot of the Mitzvah. Malahalon, Kulo, Hafaf, Lavan, Malahalon, Hafaf, Mahalon, Kulo, Hafaf, Lavan, Para, Kulo, Tar. Just like over there, right? If the whole thing turns white, the sauce reps out ultimately is hard. After is so to time also refers to the scalp. So to by the scalp, Kulo, Hafaf, Lavan, Haraf, Kulo, Tahar. So let's say, in terms of what is that? What do you see over there? That's a Hakish, and a Hakish followed by a Gzir Shava. A Hakish followed by a Gzir Shava. On the Yochanan, the Torah Kula, the Maiden Lamad Mulamad. In general, so first of all, I think to answer our question, even if you hold Davar Halamid the Hakish, Eno Koz and Halamid the Hakish, there's something ultimately again learned out from the Hakish, not serve as a source Hakish for something else. Apparently, you hold that Davar Halamid the Hakish, Koz and Halamid the Gzir Shava. Right, so we're not going to get from a Hakish, ultimately again, it will be the source of the Gzir Shava. Where do you just bring it out? From Saras. Incredible. Hold up. I think actually guys will. He says the photo of Quran, in general, both sides, it's not true. In general, in the Torah, You can always learn out something, even if it's learned out from another exegetical principle, which is another way of saying, just because B is learned out by a heckish from A doesn't mean B can't be the source of a heckish for C. I've also, this is very important, right? Zone back in now for those of you who are on vacation, right? Listen, so on my side, this is now like teenage, right? But listen, because now, this is now principle, right? This is now principle. You know what? In reality, just because something's been learned from a heckish, it serves as a source. That's John Kula. See me as B, then she is the ABC model. Just because B has been learned out by a heckish from A, B can still serve as part of the heckish for C. And just like make a very sharp between B and C. All of that works. All of that works. The only place, interestingly enough, where it won't work is Chutz min ha'kachi. Fascinating. The only place where this does not work, ultimately again, is by Kabbanis, is by country. She'ein gunning lamad milami. By country, I'm also by country, halacha l'maisa. By country is the only place where, if something is learned out through, if something is a derivative, it cannot serve as the source for something else. So in country, in Kabbalah, sacrificial law. Ultimately, again, if you're learning out B from A, so ultimately, again, then B cannot be the source for C. Neither through a heckish, nor even through a Gzera Shava. It's not going to work. Why? He says, it's very simple. It's a little bit backwards, but he says, I'll tell you why. Lo Yomar Tzafona Ba'asham, the piece of the Gzera Shava, the Kachekadosh, and the Kados. Because at the end of the day, the Torah would not need to say tzaf, and would not need to create a north requirement by Asham. And I could have learned it out from the Gzera Shabbat, Kachekadosh, and Kados. So she was Lav Lameno, the Dava Halami Behakish, any close one on the Gzera Shabbat. And everyone said, this money that you have to do by Kachin, even you have to say that even something else from the Hekish, not only can it serve as another Hekish for other items, but even can serve as a source for the Gzera Shabbat. The Dilma, you shouldn't be the Mikvah. Maybe it's different there because we also, at the end of the day, that Gzera Shabbat ultimately would have a problem. Why? Malakatos, Shifting the Chatan Habichisus. No, because when the Gzera Shabbat wouldn't work. Why? Because you can ask the Pircha, because at the end of the day, Chatos is Mechaper on Habichisus. Maybe that makes him cover, to which the Gemara says, no, Kachek Kadosh and Yisrael. There's another pasuk. Because there's an open pasuk, ultimately again, the Gzera Shabbat is free and clear. So what do you see from here? What's the bottom line for the food, you know? Interestingly enough, we went through this exhaustive exercise, love in the Hekish, hold on the Hekish. Right? To get one back from A, to B, that serves as a source for C. And I've also said that question is on two levels. To B was learned out from the Hekish, so to B as a Hekish for C, or serve as part of the Gzera Shabbat C. So originally we thought the answer is no, yes, my forecast. Bottom line, the Gemara says, the answer is yes. Yes, if B is learned out from A, right, through a Hekish, B can serve as a Hekish for C, or as a Gzera Shabbat for C. It's not a problem. There's only one area where we say that if something is a derivative law, it cannot serve as a source for something else, which is Kachin. And I was like, where does the Gemara reading that from? The simple amount of repetition that keeps happening again by Kachin. The fact that the Torah says something and reinforces it, says it again, indicates that in the normal sacrificial law, we say, Dava Halami the Hekish, something they're not from the Hekish, cannot serve as the source of Hekish for something else, and by potentially can't even serve as part of the Gzera Shabbat for something else as well. But that's a good by Kachin, not a good man of the answer. So yeah. What a gaf, what a day. Beginning of a great week together. Shkaya, everyone. All right, Shadow Zage. Jay, we got running is great, but I much prefer to this guy. Flora. All right, Kevin, so Kevin, wonderful day, everyone. It's like good morning. Let's begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning shake.